There's nothing worse than finding a parking space, but then realizing your car is actually too big to fit in it. Well, researchers in South Korea may have a solution to the problem. Joining me now is Seoul Bureau Chief Alistair Gale. Okay, so it's called the Armadillo, and it's actually a car that can fold in half, right? So how does it work?
It's pretty interesting. So the way it works is, as the name suggests, it's like an armadillo. It actually rolls into kind of a ball. And what happens is the driver gets out and then activates the bit where the car folds in on itself, and the rear of the car basically comes over the top of the front of the car and sort of seals it off.
Okay, and I guess one thing that's occurred to me as we're watching the picture of the car folding in half is you'd have to get the car in the parking space before you folded it in half. So why would anyone want a car that actually folds in half?
Well, I mean, this is just thinking ahead. Increasingly in urban areas, there's a diminishing number of parking spaces. The way that these guys at the institute that devised this are sort of selling it is that you can actually fit 3 of these armadillo cars into one regular parking space, and they're thinking it's going to be used in places like maybe shopping centres or amusement parks or things where maybe space is fairly limited. So it's just one kind of smart way of squeezing more cars into a smaller space.
Okay, and one thing we should mention is it's an electric car, right? So it's green, but how common is, how is the electric car technology taking off in places like Seoul?
Slowly. There's still not many charging stations around here. That's changing. I mean, the government's making a push to kind of increase the infrastructure for electric cars. But I think the point about this car is, they're not talking about driving it along the highway or, really taking it any significant distance. So, if you're going to be using this in a place like a golf course or something like that, the travel area is going to be fairly limited. So they'll have to make sure that you have a charging station nearby.
Okay, and this is just, we're looking at the picture again. This is just the prototype, right? Alistair, is it available on the market, or if not, when will it be?
No, this is, as you say, a prototype. It's going to be several years before it gets to commercialization, if indeed it does get that far. They're talking about 3 to 5 years, perhaps, before it's, you or I could buy one. They're not really talking about any of the big car makers getting involved just yet. It's more of a niche product. It's something that they'll be looking for, people that run these amusement parks and golf courses to consider taking on. So I think it's some time before, we're able to drive one.
Okay, well, it certainly is innovative. Thanks very much, Alistair Gale, joining us from Seoul. For more on that story, you could go to Korea Real Time on WSJ.com. I'm Deborah Kahn.